Hello BookTube. Today I'm going to be doing the Seriously Well Read tag. This tag was created by Randy Ray, the literate Texan, and I'll leave a link to his channel in the show notes down below, as well as a list of books and one poem mentioned over the course of my entering these prompts. So let's get started. Prompt number 1. What book made you take reading seriously? Now here I run into something of a problem. I have always been a serious, passionate reader. There was never one book that got me into reading seriously. So I don't have an answer to this prompt. Question number 2. What book did you pretend to understand? Be honest. I'm not entirely sure I quite understand the question. I have always been honest with my understanding or interpretation of a work. Now, sometimes this interpretation is unique, sometimes in agreement with everybody else, and sometimes I have no idea what the heck I was thinking when I had this interpretation. And so I'm going to go with that answer for this prompt. I'm going to mention a poem that I explicated for a class. So on Monday, I made a weird book haul. And so this poem that I read and explicated was for that class, the Modern American Poetry class, from the selected poems of William Carlos Williams. And the poem was Lonely Street, which I have read recently for a Poetry Thursday, but I'm going to read it again because I want to. The Lonely Street. School is over. It is too hot to walk at ease. At ease in light frocks they walk the streets to while the time away. They have grown tall. They hold pink flames in their right hands, and white from head to foot with sidelong idle look, in yellow floating stuff, black sash and stockings, touching their avid mouths, with pink sugar on a stick. Like a carnation each holds in her hand, they mount the lonely street. I have no idea how the heck I thought that poem talked about high school graduation. Moving on. Prompt number 3. Which 3 books are on your personal required reading list? Now, I could go in any number of ways to enter this prompt. I could pick something from Greece, and then something from Britain, and then something from the United States. I could pick something that is globally English. I could stick with my obsession of fiction, poetry, drama. I could pick something more aspirational. And so I think I'm going to do all of the above. So this is going to be more than just 3 books. So starting with something Greek, something British, and something from the United States, I would go with the Theogony by Hesiod, Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, and Our Town by Thornton Wilder. For something from the Global English, I would pick Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, A Raisin in the Sun by Lorraine Hansberry, and Omeros by Derek Walcott. For something more aspirational, and in this case focusing more on fiction exclusively, I would go with Middlemarch by George Eliot, Beloved by Toni Morrison, and The Line of Beauty by Alan Hollinghurst. All 3 of which hopefully I will be able to read later on this year. I would love to finally have it out with The Line of Beauty and Beloved, and I would like to get to Middlemarch. So maybe in June, July, and October. We shall see. Question number 4. What author have you been avoiding? I'm not sure if avoiding would be the right answer or the right term for this, for my answer, but I'm going to go with William Shakespeare. This isn't to say that I haven't read much of Shakespeare. I have read quite a bit of Shakespeare. I've read the sonnets, and I have read a number of the plays. And I don't get it. I don't see the greatness that so many other readers see. I don't know if my antipathy is largely or a product of or the idolatry, the exorbitant claims that are made about his work add to my antipathy for Shakespeare or not. But over the last decade or so, I haven't really wanted to read his work, even though there is a booktube event every September called ShakeTube, Shaketember, Shake whatever the hell it is. Now, I am currently in a more, I don't quite know what to call it. Because I'm not entirely sure what a good term for the grouping of fiction, poetry, and drama that I'm currently interested in. That maybe I'm more in a mood for Shakespeare right now. Maybe. Or not, I don't know. We shall see. But it's just, I've never really been all that into his work, even like ever. Moving on to prompt number 5. What's the hardest book you've ever finished? And for this, it would be Fire and Blood by Enzo Traverso. And I don't remember the translator's name. It's a history of Europe during and between the world wars, looking at how Europe tore itself apart. It is a very dense academic work that I am absolutely shocked I managed to read and actually kind of liked. Although at the time I was really into history, so that probably played quite a bit of it. I could also point to The Witch by Ronald Hutton. This is a very academic history of the witch figure across the globe. Prompt number 6. What's a book that changed how you read? Again, like with the first prompt, I don't quite have an answer for this. There was no one book that really changed how I read. That would be more a teacher or a professor. And I can't really think of any of them who would have done that. Question number 7. Quality versus quantity. Would you rather read 100 good books in a year or 10 great books? Honestly, I think I would prefer the quantity over the quality because, of course, what defines a good book versus a great book? But also, if I'm just limited to 100 or 10, well, the 100 will keep me occupied while I will be deathly bored after the 10. Question number 8. Which genre are you embarrassed to say you have not read? Science books. Um, I I don't know necessarily if embarrass is the best word. Maybe regret. I regret never really connecting with science books as much as I would like to. How my reading life has operated is that I pretty much go through cycles of interest where I will be interested in a genre for a certain length of time and then grow tired of it and move on to something new. And as much as I wish I were more into science books than I have been in, it just has never quite worked. Prompt number 9. Which book do you think most people misread? Well, to be honest, I think all reading is misreading. But I think maybe Dune by Frank Herbert. Um, because I think, so Dune, for those of you who don't know, is a space opera set tens of thousands of years in the future, where humanity has colonized the galaxy, if not the universe, and human political structures have become more feudalistic. So the greater human space community is ruled by a Padisha emperor who is supported by a Landsraad, a sort of a congress made up of planetary nobles. And the social structure is incredibly ossified. Basically, if you are born into a particular class, a particular occupation, you're never going to get out of it. Whether you are naturally inclined to this occupation or not, you're stuck. And you're never getting out of it. So, Dune is about a young boy who becomes a young man named Paul Atreides. He is the heir of Duke Leto Atreides, one of the most influential members of the Landsraad. So popular that the current Padisha Emperor Shaddam IV has grown fearful and jealous of Leto's influence. So the Emperor conspires with Leto's longtime opponent, the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, to encompass Leto's doom. So to do this, the Emperor has ordered House Atreides to occupy the planet Arrakis, which is the most valuable planet in the universe because it is the source of a mutagenic drug called the spice that allows for humans to develop superhuman abilities. And without it, basically everything collapses because in this setting, advanced computers, artificial intelligence has been banned. So humans have to pick up the slack in various ways. So for generations, the Harkonnens have ruled Arrakis, and being displaced in favor of the Atreides obviously pisses them off. So Baron Harkonnen, along with and his family's military forces, supplemented by the Emperor's Sardaukar troops, then launch an attack on the Atreides, aided by a traitor. The Atreides are defeated and seemingly killed off. However, Paul and his mother flee into the desert where they gain shelter with the the Fremen, who are early colonizers of Arrakis and have been basically manipulated by the Bene Gesserit to see figures like Paul and his mother as people they would like to protect. And gradually Paul becomes weirder and weirder and more superhuman until he basically has control of all of the Fremen and launches a rebellion that eventually sees himself blackmailing the universe to force himself to become emperor. So I think the easy reading of Dune is as pretty much a straight up heroic epic fantasy. But Herbert is trying to undercut this, that Paul Atreides isn't a hero. But I don't think a lot of people really get that. Or at least I think a lot of people don't get that. I could be wrong. So I'll go with that. And the final question is, what does seriously well read mean to you? So for me, I think I take a bit more of a traditional approach to being well read. I think you have to have a grounding in the canon of your national language. Perhaps a good grounding in the global canon of your language, and of course the global canon as well. And probably being cognizant of modern and contemporary work that may eventually enter the canon, or at least currently in the conversation. You could go as well as being somewhat cognizant of genre fiction, particularly if you have a sweet tooth for one of the genres. And of course also maybe nonfiction. So ultimately, I think unless you are like Steve Donahue or someone who reads as fast and for as long as he does, I think it would be very, very hard to actually be well read. So for me, I think being well read is more of an aspiration than a state of being. So that was the seriously well read tag. I finally did it. I have been trying to do this tag for a month, and I finally done it. So at least I have that to be happy about. And it also made me feel a bit better because I don't have my headache anymore. So anyway, BookTube, I will be back tomorrow with a Poetry Thursday episode. Maybe another tag, because now that I've gotten this tag out of the way, I can go do some other tags. Or maybe do a video in response to last week's episode of Women of Words. So I don't know. Anyway, we shall see. It also depends on when exactly the Demon Toddler will be here, because today and Thursday and Friday, I think I'm going to be watching The Demon Toddler, one of the 4 children of the apocalypse, and The Demon Toddler. So, anyway, BookTube, until I see you next time, thank you and have a great rest of your afternoon.